The three, I don't want it. A lot of us are looking at this part of the year bypassing the holiday where we give to each other, and we got to look at ways to continue putting ourselves into that positive mentality. We got to start looking at ways to utilize our level of focus, utilize our being, put ourselves in a place where the mentality has the permission for us to be ourselves. A lot of people across the face of the planet are not recognizing that vibration, so let's go ahead and start looking at how we can. What are some of the ways that you can utilize a positive mentality? Blessings to France, of course, and how we can put ourselves in a place where we utilize it to a level where we start to see positive, we start to vibrate a positive mentality into the universe, and start looking at how we can do energy readings. And like to keep this channel in a place where mentality is a purpose, where we're looking at positivity, we're not putting positions or people in front of our own ability to be ourselves. And so a lot of challenges that we face off against, they actually come from within. A lot of the things that we face off against is actually what's going on inside of ourselves. It's when we can see past all of those challenges to the person that we are inside. And so putting ourselves in that kind of a place where we actually ask ourselves where inside we're utilizing our mentality, right? And not looking from the outside. It's actually what's going on inside. And if we focus to that place where we utilize what's going on inside, it starts to create a part of who you are. And, you know, a lot of the questions that people ask themselves are, you know, how am I going to make it through this year, right? And, you know, remembered as we get towards the end of the year, as we get towards the ability for us to face off against that kind of a challenge, that, you know, we can do it, right? And, you know, it's just like every single day you're going to have challenges. You know, you're going to have people that are going to see if your mentality is able to overcome your own challenges. They're going to see if your mentality can make it through the parts that, you know, like you want to. And it's inside of ourselves that we have to look. It's inside of loving ourselves first and caring about who we are and being who we are on the inside, and, you know, standing by who we are. You know, it's going to take you being truly who you are on the inside, and it's not going to happen if you're not looking for a positive angle, if you're not looking for a positive ability, if you're seeing all of the negativity and you're not allowing yourself to see positivity, right? So there's a lot of great things that are actually happening right now. A lot of people are also succeeding during this time. They're succeeding in their mentality. They're giving themselves the place where their ability is there for them. And, you know, and I look in this next year to start creating a t-shirt line and to start getting it out there that people can actually start getting into the mentality, and we can start building something great together. You know, like, I would like to see a community of people who enjoy to be positive, that enjoy to use the challenges so that they can overcome them, that have the ability to face off against their own challenges, and has the ability to work through the things that, you know, that they face off against inside of themselves. And we all face off against things. We all face off against things inside of ourselves, and we look inside for the answer, and we look around us to find it. And it's not going to happen around you. It's going to happen within you. It's going to happen when you are who you are on the inside. It's going to happen when you're asking yourself the questions that nobody else can, and when you're willing to get down with your own challenges. It's only inside of oneself that the mentality liberates it. It's inside of the ability to be inside of oneself, to be present, to be the human being that we are. We are beings, and a lot of us don't seek out positivity in our lives. We don't seek out people that will bring us closer to ourselves. And the question should be, when do you start to seek out who you are? When do you see who you are as a positive force in the universe? What day do you wake up and you start to say, I can really make it through these kinds of challenges? The people that are in my life are a blessing. The people that care for you that is the reflection of love. Like when you're thinking about people that you want to have on your side, you're thinking about people that are there to uplift you. They're there to help your mentality to grow. They're there to help you to be who you truly are, and to express yourself for who you truly are, and to see the beauty that you have inside of yourselves, right? And we have to ask ourselves that kind of a question. We have to get down to that page where it is who you are. And we each have the ability to overcome those kinds of challenges, right? And how do we start to do so unless we start using the tools that we have? How do we start putting ourselves in a place where the mentality starts to work, where the ability inside of our starts to overcome our own challenges, right? And it's up to you to want that for yourself. It's up to you to want to be who you are, and it's nobody else's chore to do that for you. It's nobody else's place to achieve your own mentality and to be who you are on the inside and to radiate that kind of light. It's within your own level of focus. It's within your own being. And focusing to that place where we use what we have, where we focus to the place where we achieve the things that it's not going to happen for you unless you want it to happen for yourself. It's not going to happen for you unless you're willing to get to that part of yourself where you start to overcome your own challenges and you start to focus on the things inside of you. See, that's why focus is such a great foundation, is because when we're putting focus first, when we're putting ourselves in a place where we're utilizing what we have, when we're giving ourselves the ability to bypass things with a level of mentality, like it's inside of oneself that becomes possible, right? And it's not going to happen for you unless you allow yourself to do it. It's only there for the person who's willing to go after it. It's only there for the person who's willing to have that kind of mentality. Each of us is a blessing in this universe. It's up for us to allow ourselves to be utilized as that blessing, and it's not going to happen for you if you don't allow it to happen in your life. It's not going to happen for you unless your positive mentality starts to radiate. I do see someone by the name of Kanzaner. Blessings. As a periscope, I am definitely here. I want you to see that it takes one's mentality to overcome one's challenges. It takes one's ability to sit down with me inside of oneself, to sit down inside of who we are. And it's only liberation that comes to the person who focuses to that point. It's using the tools and the gifts that you have. It's using the person that you are on the inside. It's using the mentality to be who we are. And a lot of people don't do that. I look at today as a Sunday. It's a day of blessing. It's a day of ability for us to recognize that sometimes we do need to rest. So are we giving ourselves the ability to get that kind of rest? Arizona. Are we giving ourselves the ability to work through those kinds of challenges? Or are we letting those challenges overcome us, right? So, each person has to decide those types of things for themselves. They have to see what's positive in their lives. They have to start to ask themselves if that's what they are looking for, and looking at their ability to overcome those kinds of challenges, to get through those kinds of places, and to focus past those types of things. We focus through those kinds of challenges to overcome them, right? And each of us are going to have those kinds of challenges. We're going to be asking ourselves that type of a question to where, you know, we have to overcome it for ourselves. And it's a blessing to have challenge. It's a blessing to have things that we need to work through. It's when you do that for yourself. It's when you give yourself that place when, the battle isn't versus somebody else. It's never going to be you versus somebody else. It's going to be you versus your mentality. And it's going to be you versus your ability to be who you are on the inside. And it's on that page that we start to free ourselves. It's on that page that we start to give ourselves that kind of ability to go beyond challenge. And so what are your challenges? What are the things that, a positive mentality can help you to overcome? What are the things that the message of what I'm sharing radiates and resonates inside of you? What is it that you want to achieve? Ask ourselves this year as we're going into the year if we can do that, right? And you'll start to find that you can absolutely start to see from a positive angle. You can start to see the energy start to flow inside of yourself. You can start to give yourself the ability to bypass your own challenges. And because we all have challenges, each of us is going to have things that we're looking to make it through. We're going to have people that, are going to test you. They're going to be in your direction to ask you the questions for yourself. And, it's when you start to ask yourself the questions, right? And it's when you start to utilize your mentality, like, are we working, what are you working towards every day? What is it that you want to achieve? I looked at myself in a time when I was sleeping in my van, and I said to myself, I can do better than this. And that you really can. And, it's when you want to do it for yourself that change starts to happen. It's when you want to use your ability inside of you to overcome your own challenges. It's when you're focused even when other people say it's not possible. And so what are the types of challenges that you go through that when you utilize positivity, you have the ability to overcome them? Those are the types of things that I've had challenges with. And the way that I have found the ability to overcome my own challenges is by sitting down and talking them out, by putting them into a positive vibration, by helping out other people. When you give yourself the ability to be of service to others, when you give yourself the ability to uplift others, when you give yourself the ability to be a tool in the universe, amazing things start happening. People start seeking you out. Challenges start to become overcome. People who care about you start coming in your direction. But you got to care about yourself first. You got to care about your being. You got to care about the person that you are and your own level of focus and your own ability to be centered within yourself, right? And what does that even mean, to be centered inside of yourself? A lot of people don't give themselves that kind of time to sit down and study. They don't give themselves that place to use what they have inside. It's really when you're that focused that things start to become possible. It's only when you're willing to challenge, what other people would not, right? And I've heard people tell me over and over again, why don't you just quit? Why don't you make money a different way? And it isn't about that. It starts with self-study. This is a question that I got from Greeny Diego. How does one take care of oneself? It starts in your mentality, realistically. It starts when, when you have nothing and you start to find yourself, a lot of people call that rock bottom. I call that the beginning of ability to believe in oneself. The beginning, the foundation of focus, realistically, is what it is. When you sit down with yourself to the point where you're willing to focus, and a lot of people lose their focus because they're not willing to truly be who they are on the inside. They're not willing to sit down with it. And I see a lot of people with these traits where, they don't use the traits that they have. And then we see a lot of people, they fall apart because they have lost the ability to be honest with themselves, to be who they are on the inside, because they allow other people to take over their lives. It's when you take over your life. It's when you become in charge of your being. It's when you start to focus to that place where you utilize it. It's when you start to give yourself the time to have time for yourself. It's only going to happen when you want it to happen. It's sometimes it's just shutting a door. Sometimes it's just putting yourself in a place where you just give yourself a little bit of time. And a lot of people lack that. They lack the ability to sit down by themselves. They have to have so many other things take their attention. When do you give yourself attention? And it's inside of that place where that answer starts to become possible. It's when you give yourself a minimum of a tenth of your day, like an hour, just a minimum of 1 hour for you. A lot of people don't do that for themselves. And, if they would just give themselves just even an hour a day, like just sit down with yourself and use the gifts that you have to elevate your mentality. See, that's the place where a lot of people don't go. They don't go to that page of themselves until it's too late, until the last thing that they've cared about is themselves, right? And we each have that choice to use that kind of place as a growth. And we want to go learn stuff from other people. When do we spend time to learn stuff from ourselves, right? And what page do you start to do that? When do you start to give yourself permission to sit down with you? You know, it only happens for you when you're willing to do that, right? Growth happens to the person who wants to grow. Like it's just how it is. It doesn't happen when you're not sitting down with yourself and you're not studying. You're not sitting down with yourself and you're not writing things down. When you're not writing things and you're not putting it in front of yourself to use your abilities to be you. And it's that ability to sit down at that point so focus to that point where we use it past the ability to where your reflection radiates outwards, right? And each of us have one of those. We have a reflection. Other people see the reflection. They see that ability. They see your level of focus. They see what you focus on. Only you, when you start to become honest and you start to care about yourself, is when the things around you have the ability to move towards a positive direction towards you. You know, when it's always been said across you know the Asian countries that when one changes one's mentality, the things around them change. So the truth is, nothing is truly changing. Your outlook, your view is becoming positive. Your ability to really see that you matter, that your path is worth it. And, it's with that kind of mentality, to multi-process, to center oneself on the point on when they do one thing, do it very well, is the purpose of self-care, is to care at a certain point to that level. And it's at that point where you utilize it, like when do you utilize your level of focus? You know, like what point do you start to focus past your challenges? You know, we were talking today, I was talking with somebody and they were saying this world is a horrible place. You know, it's a viewpoint. This world is a beautiful place when you're positive. You know, the universe was created as a part of a multiverse. There's multiple elements of this universe. There's more than one aspect. You know, like when we each look through our eyes, we see from one angle. Do I see from your angle? Can I see your emotion? Can you see my mentality? Can you see the ability? I can speak my mind, but what really matters is what's going on inside of yourself to you. You know, like a lot of people want somebody else's approval. You know, when do you want your own approval? When do you want to be who you are on the inside? When do you start to see the positive in the things that happen? When do you start to embrace that part of yourself, right? And it's amazing that a lot of people don't give themselves that kind of permission. And when do you give yourself that kind of permission to really embrace your life? When do you give yourself that kind of permission to start to go beyond your own challenges and to go within oneself to where you focus to the ability to use what you do have, right? And when do you start to see positivity as your friend? Do you start to see positivity as a mentality and to see the blessings that we truly have in this universe, right? And you know, each of us have a life until it's taken. We have a being until there's no place inside, and it's not going to happen for you if you don't truly want it for yourself. You know, many people, many people, they are asking for questions elsewhere, and the real questions are inside. You know, like I was sitting down and I was watching a video, and I was looking at, you know, different parts of things and the challenges, and I see a lot of people who try to put themselves into a victim mentality. You know, when are we no longer victims to ourselves? When are we able to pick ourselves up and have a mentality of an able mentality? When does that ability start to happen? And you know, we don't live in a society that enables people, so we have to search out those types of things inside of ourselves. You know, like when do you qualify yourself to be you? You know, when does your permission to be yourself come out? What page do you have the ability to start speaking your mind? When do you have the ability to work through your challenges? You know, a lot of people try and seek out some advice or some counsel or somebody to do it for them. It's when we want it for ourselves. And it's only at that point where self-care starts to be utilized. It's when you truly focus to a point where you're using what you have. It's when you focus to a point where what you have is you. And we each have that place inside of ourselves. It's to use that kind of tool. It's to use that kind of ability to be who we are on the inside and to focus to the point where we become the manifestation of our beings. You know, that's the type of question that I'm asked every day, that I ask myself every day. Is what I'm doing today, is it motivation? Is it meditation? Is it inspiration? You know, when I was sleeping in the van and I was meditating at 24-hour fitness, you know, I woke up every day asking myself this question. I'll never forget that. Is what I'm doing today, is it meditation? Is it motivation? Is it inspiration? Am I inspiring other people from my ability to see that I can make it through my own challenges, that you can too? So that comes from the question that I'm asked here by Green Diego is, when does one get perspective? Okay. Let's go ahead and get you online so you can actually ask some of these questions. If you want to get on the microphone there. So you only get it when you get broken down to being yourself. When you truly sit down with yourself and you start to to focus in on the things that you truly want to do. And that only comes when you're selfless, right? A lot of people, they are so trained to want to have what everybody else has. You know, when you like something that nobody else does, for example, you know, for instance, when people wanted to first start skateboarding, they had to get a piece of wood because they didn't have any skateboards in the stores, you know? So they had to make it themselves. You know, when do you have a tailor-made life to that level where you focus in on the things that you want to achieve? And it's at that perspective where you feel like you're alone and you become your best friend that it starts to work outwards. And a lot of people seek it from somebody else, but the battle isn't versus anybody else. The great part is there's no battle versus anybody else. It's you becoming honest with oneself inside, and that's one of the hardest traits to work with on the face of the planet. Greenie, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening to you.
So, so the perspective comes from patience. It comes from when you fall flat on your face and everything is not working and you're willing to sit down with yourself, that you start to see from an angle. And a lot of people, one of the places that gives a perfect example of that kind of a perspective to see from is when you're sitting down and reading a book. Have you picked up any books? Do you enjoy reading at all or anything like that?
I love to read, yeah.
Okay. So when you pick up a book and you start reading that book, you start looking at this book. It has knowledge inside it. It has pages and it has chapters, right?
Yes.
Okay. So your mind starts to look from a angle, and then you get to become a picture of that actual puzzle, right? So this book is being written and you're becoming a part of the character or whatever inside of that book, right?
Yes.
At a certain point inside, you become best friends with yourself and you start to enjoy reading that book by yourself. Would you say?
That would be right.
That point, you have just become your best friend. Now, a lot of people, they run from that person inside because the hardest trait on the face of the planet to work with is self-honesty. It's not somebody else. It's not for somebody else. And a lot of people, they want to seek out pity. Do you know what I'm saying? They're seeking out somebody else's approval for them to be themselves.
Of course.
And so the reaching of perspective comes when one becomes their own best friend the same way they would read a book. But that takes patience. You don't start to see the storyline of your life through reading just one page. You start to see the picture inside of the book as that same exact thing. And there's a hint, a couple of hints that shows what I'm talking about is actually able to be done in real life. One of those places is actually answered by Einstein. Actually, 2 of 3 are done by Einstein. Einstein stated, become a best friend with the universe. So this means that the universe, if we can start to think of what Newton said, which was for each action there's an equal and opposite reaction, then that means that we can start to see positivity as our best friend.
Yes.
Now, that is sitting down and enjoying that book by yourself. Now, another one that's a key that science is amazing in the way in which it basically says the simplicity of reading a book is Einstein has a theory of relativity that says mass and energy are interchangeable. Now, we breathe. So, as a human being, we have a breath that actually doesn't a mass and energy change. So, that energy coming into our bodies shows that the theory of relativity actually works. So, we are just like a book. So, the pages that we have inside of ourselves in meditation, and that's where actually I talk about in my 10 minutes here after talking about focus for 30 minutes that we have, is when we're meditating, we're sitting down and studying ourselves. So reading that book is a form of meditation because it's getting the energy inside of yourself to become best friends with who you already are. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm following you, yeah.
So when you sit down and read enough books, all of a sudden you're sitting there with 20 books later and you're going, wow, I'm really good at reading books, right?
Yes.
So that takes time. And a lot of people who become the top athletes across the face of the planet, become the top singers, the energy, all it's done is it's transferred to point at them. They've become the knowledge has become them. So we can become that too, but we have to sit down and study ourselves. And a lot of people lack that kind of time to be patient with themselves, to read the whole book and the pages and chapters. Now, the interesting thing about meditation is that it's like Newton's third law. For each action, there's an equal and opposite. So we are the center. We are the mass. This is the mass. The process of our ingoing and our outgoing breath is how focus becomes absorbed, and then the knowledge inside starts to free itself, and then the lesson comes out like a student and a teacher being inside a classroom. So at a certain point, positivity starts to find you. So when other people see this right here, let me go ahead and show you what I mean if I have it. They're actually up top. I look at motivation as a reflection, okay? When a person is focused on what they're truly focused on, then when at a certain point where the universe starts to test you, have you ever done anything and you got so focused that a lot of people try to stop you and you continued to focus to where they couldn't ignore it?
I don't think people have stopped me. I don't permit people to
That's it.
stand in my way.
But they try to.
I've been fortunate enough to not have people do that to me.
Okay, well, a lot of people focus on things and then other people come along and they tell them, no, 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 you can't do that way.
I think that if you are brought up in an environment where that is not the word, that you are not hearing that constantly, if you're brought up, fortunately, in an environment where you are encouraged, then you live a life where then people do not stand in your way.
What I'm saying is the universe will, if you do something on a constant basis and you become very focused into it, you will constantly be tested to see if that's what you truly want to do.
Oh, absolutely. And I think as long as you recognize it as a choice, then whether you succeed or not is meaningless. At
Exactly.
least you gave yourself a choice in discovery, and that's personal self-discovery at that point.
And that is exactly what it's about. Finding where the foundation of focus lays. A lot of people focus on too many things and not on the things that they truly want to do.
Of course.
And the reason why is because they don't use self-honesty.
That's true, and it takes a lot of falling down and getting back up again to realize that that path is not the way one wants to go. And once you choose another path to calm, serenity, and really introspection, I think people then realize, wow, I can go a different direction that is healthier.
And that is part of having a positive mentality. And when you're positive in your mentality, what happens is the things that are not meant for you, they move out of the way on their own.
More or less. you have to really be focused on that to make sure those things get out of your way. Some are easier than others. Yeah,
sure. And so that's where positivity becomes your friend. So if you can put your mindset into a place where your vibration is positive, then even through challenge, you can see this challenge happens so that this could happen.
Of course.
And that focus is the foundation on which my mentality lays.
Yes.
And so when I do meditation, which if you go motivation, meditation, inspiration.yoga, you can go on my Periscope, Instagram, Twitter, all my different networks, and you'll actually see videos back of me doing meditation, teaching other people. And that's that place and where it comes from. Now, the energy inside is like to a book. Your breaths are connected to pages which are connected to your emotions, your mentality, and the whole entire being. So when one starts to sit down inside of themselves and they want to work, like, let's suppose you want to work on the ability to stand your ground at work, right? So that red energy field has a relation to the whole entire being, not just emotional, not just a mental, the whole entire thing is a part of that energy. Each individual energy field is related to the whole entire being in that way. And that is where Einstein's theory really comes in, because we are both mass and energy, but where inside the body does the energy go is what the chapters of that book are about. And so the pages which are connected to the emotions, the breath, the 1,000 thoughts per energy field throughout the whole entire body is Kundalini. Qigong is the chapter's understanding of reading through the chapters. Now, a lot of people, they get stuck with their emotion and they can't bypass the mentality to achieve a place of understanding. It's just simply studying oneself. You can do this speaking, you can do this reading, you can do this doing music, but it's how focused one is. And the people that have achieved that level are artists in this world. They're the top singers in this world. And they're not just them. Those are just the popular ones. You know, you can go across the face of the planet, you're going to find these kind of people with this level of focus to extract the knowledge inside, to not let the things on the outside stop them from being who they truly are on the inside. And that is what it's about.
Yes, and surprisingly, once you arrive at that place, for someone who is in that position, is a very peaceful and serene place, and a very simple place.
That's it.
There is no external conflict at that point. Everything was in your powers to make things happen, to manifest things that you'd like to see happen.
That what you just said is 100% on point. It is when you no longer are fighting a battle versus other people. When you see what you got going on inside is your own thing, then that's when true beauty starts to radiate outwards. The beauty from understanding. And the perspective comes when one realizes that there's sufficient inside. Like when you know, like however many years you've been on the face of the planet, you're qualified to be you. You're absolutely qualified. Whatever amount of years you have had, that's your knowledge, that's your story, that's your ability. Those are your challenges to be able to overcome and to free yourself and to liberate the mind from that. Is like heating up like gold, for instance, to purify it. They heat it up and then they pull out the impurities. With meditation, you can actually sit down inside of yourself and start working on that angle. And it's the inwards journey that actually starts to give one the ability to start to gain access to that teacher which is inside of you, which is qualified to be the teacher in your life.
I agree.
And a lot of people don't reach that page on how do I overcome my emotions? How do I find the story behind the emotion? How do I see the positive things for myself?
Right. And I think you have to lead certain people to a place where they can sit down and become the observer, because their emotional state
observation.
Their emotional state is such that it overwhelms them. And I think once you get them to be the observer, you've taken the first step in helping somebody down that path.
That path starts with writing stuff down, putting yourself in a place where you face off against your external universe, so that as you break through it, you actually find the place inside of yourself to where you are. It's likened to being in a tunnel that's dark. And let's take you to the end of a train tunnel that's 100-mile walk. And it's completely pitch dark black. So we just drop you off and we say you got to figure your way out. You're going to start with, whatever the person is, wherever their mentality is. Some people are going to start with crying. Then we're going to start with, why would they leave me here? Then we're going to start to get to the point where we're going to start to get up and be like, well, this sucks. Then we're going to get to the point where, why don't we just walk? And that person that's willing to get up and start walking on their own and to start facing off against their own challenges and to start to find that peace inside of themselves starts to gain an understanding that they can do it for themselves.
I agree, and I think at that point, it's good to point out to those people, that one person, that this is an inner strength that he or she has, and to point that out and say, look what you've done. This is a strength, a personal strength. You've gotten up, you've walked down the tunnel, you're now walking, you're no longer crying. This is who you are. Keep going.
And that is where the third part comes in, which is inspiration. So, as a person starts to use their level of focus and they start to use their knowledge inside, what starts to happen is we start to find that this classroom starts to hold value, what you're talking about right now. And so as a person starts to understand that they can be who they truly are, the knowledge and the focus starts to become centered inside of oneself. And that becomes a reflection and what other people see from that. And it isn't about other people, it's necessarily about you being on your own focus. But they will start to see you as a level of inspiration. And that's the reflection of discipline.
I agree. That's absolutely correct.
And when we do that, we become a more beautiful world.
Of course.
When we allow ourselves to become disciplined inside of ourselves, to be who we truly are on the inside, the reflection has the ability to help to uplift other people. And
yes, and I think that I'm completely agreeing with everything you're saying. You're you're on spot here. I know many people who will arrive at that place and then take a few steps backwards and feel as though they've.
And this is the page in which we talk about selfishness versus selflessness. Okay, as you reach that page, a lot of people, they get stuck at the forklift of, let me go ahead and take on the whole entire world, or let me go ahead and not take on the whole entire world. Now, on that page, we look at the ability in which people become confused, okay? At the page of discipline lays selflessness, not selfishness.
Sure.
Selflessness in being all that you are, and all that you are is yourself.
Yes.
And inside of that page lays an understanding to the person who can achieve the level of selflessness. I don't need anything more than myself. I don't need anything less than myself. And that's when the hardcore self-honesty wakes up and goes, let me go ahead and be who I truly am. And it's very hard for people to achieve that page because the universe, the people that have started to put the infrastructures in place, do not want you to find self-discipline.
Why not?
The reason why is because when you find self-discipline, you become self-understanding and you're self-sufficient.
So why would others not want you to arrive at such a positive place?
Because a lot of people in this universe lack in the ability to sit down and study. Self-study. The first question that you asked, which is actually the most important question there that has been asked. How does one take care of oneself? They don't want you to take care of yourself. They don't want you to know yourself. They want you to be a part of a huge community that relies on somebody else.
Okay, so now I need to stop you and ask you who the they is in this
population.
But who are they? Because unless, if you cannot identify they...
40 minutes. So, go ahead, ask that question.
Who is the they? I mean, it has to be more than just an ambiguous concept.
Okay, for instance, go sit inside of a sauna in any 24-hour fitness and start meditating. Mm-hmm. You're going to find people who are not going to enjoy that.
Yeah,
the reason why is because their mentality is vibrating in a different direction. Okay? And that's just one example. So, people that are freeing themselves, that are actually doing what we're talking about, become an inspiration, and they become a top 1% in the world.
Yes.
And when they become the top 1% in the world, a lot of people lack that ability. It's like Michael Jordan, for instance. He was known to shoot the most shots of any basketball player that ever lived. And a lot of people don't want to shoot the shots that Michael Jordan shot, but they want to be Michael Jordan. Does that make sense?
I'm following you, yes.
So, like for instance, when I was sitting inside the sauna and I was breathing my breaths, people wanted to learn how to do it, but they couldn't sit down because the mentality wasn't in place to be able to handle it. You know, when I got to 5 hours sitting in a sauna meditating, and other people were along their progression, they were focused on how somebody else could do it for them more than them doing it for themselves.
Right. But that didn't derail you, and you kept going.
No, And that's why I'm talking about the top 1% and the mentality to achieve liberation.
You've been fascinating. I've enjoyed listening to you. I know you have to go, but thank you
Yes.
very much.
So, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Northern California.
Northern, okay, up by Sacramento?
No, the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge in Mill Valley.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I'm out in Prescott, Arizona. I lived in San Diego for about 31 years. So,
You're a nice guy. There are times like this I just bemoan the fact that Periscope is leaving because I don't know where to go in order to do this more.
Periscope is leaving. However, Twitter is still doing this kind of communication.
So I'm going to have to explore how to do the transference because I haven't explored that yet. And I want to continue doing this and finding people like you just to hang out with. It's really very stimulating, and I like it a lot.
Well, it's a blessing, and I could tell you use a lot of your yellow energy in your thought process, and that's a lot of the energy that you have around you, even.
I'm a teacher. I'm a
Very
language
good.
teacher, and I'm a free spirit person. And I'm really kind of lay back, and I listen to what you're saying, and you're not making it up. You're for real. I would tell you right away what I thought if I didn't think it were real.
Oh man, it's so awesome. I learned meditation on my own. My mom, though, she was a student of Yogi Bhajan, and my great grandpa and my grandpa were all into meditation. I got little glimpses just here and there, but it wasn't until I started to want to learn it for myself. And then when I really got tested, when I was sleeping in my van for 2 months and doing meditation and breaking barriers inside the sauna and finding what is inside is greater than what goes on around us.
I agree, and I've lived, and I won't take much more of your time, but I've discovered how to manifest things, not things that I crave, things that I personally want, but how to create a life where you say, I see the end results. How do I walk the path to get there? And it will benefit everybody. And I love trying that experiment out all the time. And I've proven it over and over again with such specific situations that people still laugh and crack up and say, you've done that? And how did you do that? And I'll tell them a story, and it sounds miraculous, but every time I tell it, it's true. So I hear what you're saying, and I believe in what you're saying, and you're right on target. And I'm glad you took some time to stare into the camera because it works a lot better that way.
You know, it's interesting. There's so many universal wealths in this universe, if yet we will just sit down and start to become intrigued by them.
Yeah, I was fortunate, but I think a lot of people have their demons, and I think it's ridding yourself of your demons can then liberate yourself toward those things that are healthy and beneficial for not only yourself but for others.
That's exactly what I want to do. What you're hearing right now is the reason why I get on here. Is because I slept in my van. I loved somebody more than I loved myself. Didn't focus on myself. Had to sit down and become patient. Started to observe. Started to get to the point where you start to care about yourself and started to go beyond the emotion of love to actually find the place of knowledge where the love came from.
Yeah. And I could hear it in your voice. I could hear it in your passion. So you've done a lot of work. You've done a lot of work to arrive where you are now.
You know,
It's a positive. Yeah, it's a real positive place.
1 year ago, I would have been looking at a fact that my wife left me.
Yeah.
At this point inside, it was a blessing that my wife left me.
Exactly. Sometimes we have to really just sit back and look at things down the road. I have a cat here that's demanding my attention. I have to leave you.
All right. Blessings,
Hey,
brother. You have a blessed day, okay?
hey, it's always a nice moment to just stumble upon somebody who's walking along the same kind of pathway. It's kind of fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a blessed one, okay?
All right, you too. Bye bye.
All right. What a wonderful conversation it was there. I do want you all to be blessed in your day. I do happen to have some stuff that I need to do here. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to say blessings as always and namaste.